Good evening, adventurers. Today we have another horror story. This story is the same author as one of our previous videos. But in the story, the problem player is now their DM. As their DM, this problem player seemingly elects to heavily railroad the group into a battle. A battle which they never really wanted the players to actually fight. Let's get into it. Tonight's tale is called How Dare You Fight the Boss I Railroaded You To. Our cast of characters for this campaign are a tiefling artificer, played by me, a shifter wizard, played by our previous DM, a cat girl paladin, played by our previous druid. This was a homebrew race specific to the campaign, and of course, the DM. So, let's start with some context. Once again, this was a homebrewed campaign. Our DM for this campaign created an entire world that was very rich and full of lore. The reason for this is that she was writing a book set in this universe. I thought, wow, that's really cool. Making your own world is hard, and I'm excited to play. To be young, dumb and naive. The world consisted of a few different nations that had the Dungeons and Dragons races, as well as some homebrew ones. For now, we'll discuss two races. The anime animal people and the technology aliens, which both had real names, but this is more fun. The anime people were basically cat girls, bunny girls, cowgirls, and so on. Our paladin was a member of this race. The technology aliens were descendants of aliens who couldn't do magic, but instead made really awesome tech that did magic similar effects. That last point is important, as it's the basis of my character. My tiefling artificer was neglected for most of her life. She found a book about the technology aliens and started making inventions like theirs, hence she became an artificer. Now, I'm going to emphasise that she didn't do magic, she built machines. I discussed this with the DM prior to our session 0 to be sure that we were on the same page. The DM agreed that all of my artificer's spells were actually just gadgets she uses to achieve the same effect. Like throwing a grenade instead of casting a fireball or something. But again, she doesn't do magic. Also, just a quick note, I don't know if this is how everyone runs artificers, but this is what we agreed on for the campaign, as it fit with the lore of the world. There were already characters that could not use magic, and instead made tech to imitate it. So, session 0 went great. I had a blast. I was playing a character drastically different from my first. My artificer was basically young, impulsive, could be rather selfish, but wanted to make friends with everyone. Also, she swore a lot and flipped everyone off, which was just a fun time for me. And whenever I cast a spell, I would explain how I imagined the tech would work. The DM was all for it. We end session 0 with everyone in the same big city. Then we get to session 1. Typically, we had our sessions the same day and time every week. But the day of session 1, I had a family thing and asked if we could delay an hour. The other two players agreed, but the DM vetoed that decision and just said that I could arrive late. Alright, no big deal. I told them to just have my character chill at the base or something until I joined. I sign on, about an hour late as expected, and everything is chaotic. My party is running all over the city while the DM is posting an ominous countdown in the chat. They tried to catch me up to speed while still being productive, because the countdown didn't pause to let me get context for what was happening. That would be too easy. Basically, here's what happened. The wizard and paladin met up, and paladin informed wizard that there was a prince in the city who was trying to assassinate his mother, the queen, who was also visiting the city. The paladin knew the prince had some sort of plan, but wasn't sure what. So they investigated and found out the prince was building a giant mech to destroy the city. Anyway, they warned the queen, and that's when the doomsday counter started. No explanation for why, just a doomsday counter. The two were trying to find the location of the mech when I joined. Now, you must be wondering, but buddy, what about your character? Did she just chill at base? No. Apparently, the DM had my character go on her own adventure, with neither of the party members, just by herself. And on that adventure, she fought some cultists, and met a small-breasted cowgirl. Yes, this was her constant description. Who fell in love with my character on sight. Okay? Just a fun little side note here, but after this event, almost every NPC knew that the cowgirl liked my character and not so subtly implied that if my character refused to date her, my character would probably be killed. Because this girl was the daughter of an assassin mafia or something. Did my other 2 party members get forced into a romance? Of course not. I'm special. And if you asked yourself, hey buddy, didn't your last campaign have an attempted forced romance with the same player? Yes, it did. Probably a coincidence. Anyway, we finally find the location of the mech robot. We try to sneak into the warehouse. We're mostly successful. Fight a few baddies, things are going well. Still got like 5 hours on the doomsday clock. But then we hear the sound of something powering up, and there's a giant boom of energy. Everyone make a wisdom save. I fail. My artificer had comically low wisdom. The wizard fails. The paladin succeeds. The DM gleefully informs Wizard and I that we lost all of our spell slots. Confused, I interject. So, wait, you mean magic spell slots? Because I don't cast spells, I use tools. You lost your spell slots. You can't use any magic. Okay, right. But I'm saying I don't use magic. I use tools. So if it's an anti-magic thing, then I should still be okay. No, you failed the save, so you lose your spell slots. At this point, I don't want to keep arguing, because we are getting nowhere, so I just agree. Sure, my tech got scared by the big boom and doesn't want to work anymore. I'll just roll with it. And of course, I know rules as written artificers are magic users. My confusion came from the fact that in this homebrew world, the technology aliens did not use magic, and instead made pure technology to imitate magic. If we used detect magic on their technology, it did not register as magic. Since my artificer learned her craft from them, I assumed her tech would be the same. If the DM had clarified that I used magic cores or something, or that the magic wipe was also some form of EMP, I wouldn't have been confused. The giant mech thing burst from the basement, and is being piloted by the prince. Oh snap, what drama, what danger, what... Hey wait, aren't we level 1? It quickly dawns on all of the players that we are woefully underleveled to handle this sort of encounter. But we don't really have options. The warehouse is located outside of the city, all of our allies are in the city, and are far enough away that we couldn't reach them in time. We have no means to contact anyone, and this giant mech thing wants to destroy the city anyway. Guess we're going out in a blaze of glory. Oh, and the doomsday clock? Still counting down. The wizard is slinging cantrips, but the mech keeps absorbing magic. Our paladin is working to cut off its gun arm, had one grabby arm and one gun arm, while my artificer is trying to smash her way into the cockpit with a hammer. The paladin manages to break off the arm and we all cheer. The DM describes, as the arm falls, you see the gun turn to train on you and begin to power up. Wait, how does it still have power? I detached it. No, you detached the other arm. What? Despite the paladin specifically saying she was hacking away at the gun arm, you know, the biggest threat, the DM thought she was hacking away at the other arm. When we explained that we all thought she was focusing on the gun arm, the DM just told us, no. So I'm trying to smash my way into the cockpit, which has a glass windshield, with my hammer, but I'm barely making any progress. Even when I roll a crit, the thing hardly cracks. Oh, and I'm rolling strength checks, not attack rolls. My spaghetti-armed tiefling child shockingly doesn't have high strength. Eventually, the mech does another big blast and catapults all of us into the water surrounding the city. The mech charges up to shoot a laser at the city, and we try to intervene, but the DM says we are all stunned without rolling to save. The mech shoots the laser, and we're all thinking, well shit, until a giant force field covers the city, absorbs the laser, and shoots it back at the mech. The mech is destroyed, the city is safe. So the session ends, and I realised that we were entirely unnecessary for the whole scenario. The mech was planning on shooting a laser at the city this whole time, and the city always had this defence. We could have done nothing, and everything would have been fine. Aren't we supposed to be heroes or something? The DM informs us that the countdown was for technology aliens. Apparently they were planning on just destroying the whole neighbourhood the mech was in to neutralise the threat. The DM also spent several minutes berating us for fighting the mech. You weren't supposed to fight it. I wasn't prepared for you guys to fight it. Why would you do that? You should have run away. But you said it was going to destroy the city. Yeah, and you told me my character's mission was to stop the prince. Yes, but it wasn't supposed to happen yet. But wait, didn't you just tell us the technology aliens would have destroyed the neighbourhood if we did nothing? a ton of people would have still died. They wouldn't have done that if you hadn't warned the Queen about the assassination attempt. I'm confused. The wizard is confused. The paladin is the most confused because the DM primed her with this mission. So we were supposed to run away from danger, not tell the Queen that her son wants to offer. And do what? Spend the session window shopping? I thought it was odd, especially since most players want to play heroes. But little did I know this was an omen for things to come. And thus ends our first tale from my second campaign. And there we have it. So, we already knew that this DM was a problem player. It is interesting to see them take the DM seat. I really think that when our author was late to a session, and the DM had decided to have their character go on an entire adventure without the player present, is really indicative of their railroading. It seems pretty evident that this DM, for the most part, wanted their players to just play the game the exact way that they wanted their story to unfold, and then they got upset if they stepped out of the tracks. And judging by the ending with the force field, the DM really seemed to favour unnecessary sensational events. After all, the players didn't even need to be present to have defeated their bad guy. A big rule of thumb I have when DMing is never to heavily invest in one line of action, because no matter how well you know your players, at some point they will always take an action or a route that is totally surprising to you, and oftentimes, DMs really need to be able to think on their feet and improvise. Have you ever been railroaded this hard? Or been presented with a big bad that was defeated without your adventuring party? That's all I have for tonight. But remember, the tavern is always open. Good night.